In today's world, the average American backyard garden produces about $600 worth of food annually. This might seem impressive, but it pales in comparison to the medieval cottage gardens, which were often half the size yet generated the equivalent of $2,000 to $5,000 in food, medicine, dyes, and trade goods combined. While your garden may yield tomatoes and zucchini, medieval gardens produced plants that were incredibly valuable, some selling for thousands of dollars per pound today. Subscribe and comment for more nature videos. A significant reason for this disparity is that many crops that medieval families depended on have quietly disappeared from modern seed catalogs, garden centers, and agricultural courses across the Western world. Not because they stopped being effective, but because they work too well for a system that benefits from consumers buying seeds every spring. By the end of this exploration, you will understand which plants can transform a backyard into a self-sustaining engine of food, medicine, and trade value, and why those selling garden supplies might prefer you to remain unaware of them. The first on our list is the Saffron Crocus. This plant is capable of producing the most expensive spice on earth right in your backyard. To give you an idea of its value, 1 pound of saffron requires around 75,000 hand-picked flowers, and its retail price fluctuates between $1,000 and $5,000 based on quality. In Essex, England, farmers grew saffron as a cash crop so profitable that an entire town eventually renamed itself after the plant, Saffron Walden. Originally known as Chipping Walden, the town adopted the saffron name as the crop dominated its economy. Even today, the town's coat of arms features crocus blooms, a testament to the significance of this plant. In its peak years, a single acre of saffron crocus could generate around 6,000 pounds annually, a sum that would take a laborer months to earn. The crocus is a perennial bulb. You plant the corms once in late summer, and they multiply underground each year. Each flower produces 3 tiny red stigmas, which you pinch out by hand and dry. It takes about 150 flowers to yield just 1 gram, but that gram of grade A saffron retails for $6 to $12. In a 4 by 8 feet raised bed, you can fit around 200 to 300 corms. By the second year, those corms will have doubled, and by the third year, you're harvesting a spice that costs more per ounce than silver, all from a space smaller than a dining table. No modern vegetable can match that return per square foot. Next up is Woad, the original blue dye plant of Europe before the arrival of indigo from Asia. Woad, or Isatis tinctoria, was the only plant in Europe capable of producing blue dye, making regions that controlled its cultivation incredibly wealthy during the medieval era. The triangle between Toulouse, Albi, and Carcassonne in southern France became known as the Pays de la Laine, or Land of Plenty, due to the riches generated from woad. Merchants trading in processed woad leaves built magnificent stone mansions in Toulouse, structures that still stand today, like the Hôtel de Bernoux and the Hôtel de la Bourse, funded by this garden plant. In various parts of Germany and France, laws were enacted to protect the woad trade, banning the use of imported indigo with severe penalties for violators. Woad is a biennial plant that grows to about 0.9 meters tall. You sow the seeds in spring, harvest the leaves in summer and fall, and the plants self-seed for the following year. The leaves are processed into small dried cakes called koken, which release blue pigment when fermented in an alkaline solution. Modern natural dyers still use the exact same process. The seeds are available from heritage suppliers for just a few dollars per packet. If Woad owned blue, Madder owned red. Rubia tinctorum produces the deepest, most light-fast crimson and scarlet dyes available in nature. By the 9th century, Charlemagne ordered that madder be cultivated on all his royal estates, specifically for its trade value. By the 18th century, England was importing all of its madder from Holland, costing around 300,000 pounds annually, an incredible sum that translates into tens of millions in modern currency every year for centuries. Madder is a perennial, with a deep root system that takes 2 to 3 years to mature. You plant it once and later harvest roots that yield vibrant red dye, which was so essential that entire military industries depended on it for uniform cloth. The famous British redcoats owe their color to madder root. The most coveted variant, Turkish red, commanded such a premium that European dyers spent centuries attempting to reverse engineer the process used in Anatolian workshops, but they were unable to crack the secret. In 1868, German chemists synthesized alizarin, madder's active compound, resulting in the collapse of the entire madder-growing industry almost overnight. Centuries of agricultural wealth evaporated in a decade. For your garden, madder is a low-maintenance perennial ground cover. The roots spread underground, producing dye material that can be sold to natural dyers and fiber artists at premium prices. A single established patch can provide harvest material for years. Another remarkable plant is Comfrey, known for producing more usable biomass per acre than almost any temperate crop. Researchers at the Bocking trials in Essex, England, measured fresh yields averaging 33 tons per acre, 74 metric tons per hectare, per year for the Bocking 14 cultivar, with some experimental plots in tropical conditions pushing yields above 100 tons, 224 metric tons. You can cut Comfrey 6 to 8 times per growing season, and it will regenerate each time. However, the real value lies in its leaves. Dried comfrey contains 20 to 30% protein, surpassing most feed crops. Its nutrient profile reads 3.5, 1.2, 8.4 NPK, rivaling commercial potassium fertilizers. Medieval farmers knew comfrey as knitbone because of allantoin, a compound that stimulates cell reproduction and has been used to treat fractures, sprains, and wounds for over 2,000 years. The Greek name symphum literally means to grow together. Permaculture growers report that laying wilted comfrey leaves along potato rows as mulch significantly increases yields compared to unmanured soil. One comfrey patch can meet your entire garden's fertility needs, eliminating the need for bags of fertilizer or annual purchases. Just one perennial plant can pull minerals from subsoil layers that your shallow-rooted vegetables cannot access. Medieval gardeners used comfrey as food, medicine, and fertilizer, serving 3 roles from the same plant. Before sugar became widely available, sweetness was a luxury. In the 14th century, a pound of sugar in England cost anywhere from 7 pence to 2 shillings, while a day laborer earned only 3 to 4 pence. Medieval families who needed sweetness grew their own, using a perennial root vegetable known as skirret, Sium cisatum, which was so sweet that the Dutch called it suikerwortel, and the Germans named it Zuckerwort. Skirret produces clusters of white, finger-sized roots, about 15 to 20 centimeters long, tasting like a cross between parsnip and sweet potato, but sweeter than both. You plant the crown once, and it returns every year. You can pull a cluster, take what you need, and replant the rest. No tilling, no replanting, and no annual seed purchases are necessary. The reason skirret has disappeared from modern gardens is simple. It cannot be machine harvested. The roots are thin and tangled, making them difficult for harvesting equipment designed for larger, singular roots. However, for a home garden, skirret offers free sweetness from a permanent planting that requires little more than soil and patience. Every medieval kitchen in Europe had lovage growing near the door. The Romans brought this herb across the continent, and Charlemagne specifically ordered its cultivation on all royal estates around 800 AD. Its flavor profile is remarkable. Lovage tastes like concentrated celery with deep, savory, almost meaty undertones. What modern food scientists would call umami. Medieval cooks regarded lovage as the ingredient that enhanced the flavor of everything. In a world where imported spices cost a laborer's weekly wages, lovage provided complex flavors from a plant that could grow in any soil, returning every year without requiring maintenance. Every part of lovage is edible. The leaves are used in soups and stews. The stems can be blanched and eaten like celery. The roots are cooked as a vegetable, and the seeds serve as a spice. A single lovage plant can grow to 1.8 meters tall and produce enough leaf material to season meals for an entire household throughout the growing season. Medieval physicians referred to horseradish, Armoracia rusticana, as the farmer's antibiotic, and modern science supports this claim. Researchers have tested the isothiocyanates, sharp-tasting compounds released when the root is grated, and found measurable antibacterial activity. Commercial operations yield about 7,000 to 8,000 pounds per acre, 3,175 to 3,630 kilograms per hectare. A single plant can produce roughly 0.45 kilograms of root each season. It's a perennial that spreads aggressively, making containment the only challenge. Medieval households used horseradish as a condiment, a respiratory medicine, a digestive aid, and a food preservative. One plant serves multiple functions and requires minimal care once established. In contrast, modern gardens often grow basil, which dies at the first frost and costs around $3 a pot every spring. Horseradish, on the other hand, grows back independently, yielding pounds of material per plant and providing antimicrobial compounds that medieval families relied on instead of a pharmacy. Cardoon, Cynara cardunculus, is the wild ancestor of the globe artichoke and has been cultivated for centuries before the artichoke became popular. Documented in the 12th century farming guide by Ibn al-Awam from Seville, cardoon was listed among essential kitchen garden vegetables. Beyond its culinary uses, cardoon plays a vital role in cheesemaking. The dried flowers contain enzymes that curdle milk, acting as a natural vegetable rennet. Medieval cheesemakers utilized cardoon thistle to produce cheese, similar to how modern operations use synthetic or animal-derived rennet. The plant can grow to 1.5 meters tall and returns every year, producing edible stems that taste like a nuttier version of the artichoke heart, as well as edible roots and cheese-making ingredients from its flowers. While globe artichokes sell for $3 each at grocery stores, cardoon is a perennial that can yield food and rennet for a decade from a single planting. Sea kale, Cram maritima, is often overlooked as a luxury vegetable. This hardy perennial, native to the cold, rocky beaches of northern Europe, survives harsh conditions that would kill most modern garden crops. Georgian and Victorian gardeners discovered that by blanching the shoots in winter, covering them with a pot or bucket to block the light, the plant produces tender, ivory-colored stalks with a flavor reminiscent of asparagus and hazelnuts. During the Victorian era, sea kale became one of the most expensive vegetables, selling for 9 pence a basket when a laborer earned less than that in a day. Thomas Jefferson even grew it at Monticello between 1809 and 1822. The plant returns every year without needing replanting, producing harvestable shoots in late winter and early spring, precisely when other gardens have little else to offer. Finally, we have Elecampane, Inula helenium, a plant that brings everything together. Elecampane contains one of the highest concentrations of inulin found in any plant, with levels reaching 44% of dry weight when harvested in October. This prebiotic fiber is essential for gut health. Medieval apothecaries used Elecampane as the base ingredient in potina, a digestive wine preparation prescribed across Europe. Its roots were documented for treating burns as well. The plant is tall and striking, growing to over 1.5 meters with bright yellow, daisy-like flowers. It thrives in partial shade and poor soil. You plant it once and can harvest roots as needed for years. Timing is crucial. Harvesting in October yields roots with peak inulin content. A modern bottle of prebiotic supplement can cost between $15 and $25 and lasts only a month. One Elecampane plant can produce that same compound for free every year. Each of these plants shares 3 qualities that modern garden vegetables typically lack. They are either perennials or aggressive self-seeders, eliminating the need for the annual cycle of buying, planting, and replacing. They serve multiple functions: food, medicine, fertilizer, dye, trade goods, from a single planting. and they generate more economic value per square foot than any row of tomatoes, peppers, or lettuce ever could. Medieval gardeners approached their gardens differently than we do today. They didn't grow decorative food. They cultivated integrated production systems where every plant justified its space by delivering multiple forms of value simultaneously. We traded that system for one that requires us to return to the garden center every March, purchasing annuals that produce one thing for one season and then perish. In contrast, a medieval gardener planted once and harvested for a decade. The math is straightforward. The plants on this list do not operate like your standard garden. They offer years of productivity, compound in value, and demand almost nothing in return.